Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to have you all here and be with you all this afternoon, talking about some really important issues coming from our annual governance survey 2023. Um, I am Nina Sharma. I'm the Senior Policy and Research Officer here at NGA, and I am joined by Megan Tate, who is the Policy and Research Officer also. And we work together on the annual governance survey this year, and we have done for the past 3 years. So it's really great to be here talking through these findings. Each year, we love seeing what comes out of the survey, and they're really important issues and raising those issues far and wide. So it's really great to be here talking with you today for this webinar. Hopefully this webinar will provide you with some food for thought, some ideas, some solutions possibly that come out of that have come out of the findings from the annual survey. A lot of you may resonate with some of the topics that we discuss. There's lots of different platforms where we talk about the survey, so please do take a look at those. We published a report from the annual governance survey a couple of weeks ago, and they kind of go into depth about some of the key issues, and I'll outline those slightly further on. So let's kick off with some housekeeping. So this will be about 30 to 40 minutes long. There isn't any opportunity to network, but you can use the chat function to post any questions or have any conversations with others. Any questions that you do ask to us, to NGA, we will reply back directly to you via email after the webinar. So we aren't ignoring you. We'll just address those after the webinar, and you may find that the questions are addressed further on. You will be muted, so you won't be able to be heard, and you will be sent the slides with resources that we mentioned. We will be mentioning quite a few resources as we go through this afternoon, so please don't worry about trying to find them. We'll send them to you through a link. This is being recorded just so that we can post it on our website later on this week. So if there's anyone that you know would find this webinar helpful, you can always direct them to the recording later on in the week when it's available. And we do have other webinars from previously as well. And just before we actually officially kick off, just thank you so much for everything that you do for pupils and your community. It really doesn't go unnoticed here at NGA. So yes. So our annual governance survey, for those of you who may not know, is a really valuable source of information for us here at NGA. It sits in the absence of any official data that we have from the DFE or anything like that. So it's really key in sharing this information with policymakers, sharing it with our partners and seeing how they align with sort of their policy focuses. It drives the work of NGA, so it kind of focuses our work for the year ahead. And it draws attention to the governing role and the issues that boards are facing at the moment. And a lot of these resonate with things that we hear and see through and through. So there's nothing that's starkly different, but it kind of adds another platform and a really important voice to the sector as well. So this year we had the survey open for just a little over a month, from between April and June. We had over 2,500 participants respond to the survey. So if you were one of those people that provided your experiences and thoughts, thank you so much. There will be opportunity in the future for you to feed in if you didn't get a chance to this year, but we value every single response. It really gives us such a valuable range of insight for us to carry on through our work. We had 50% of trust respondents this year, which was, I think, our highest, and we had 76% NGA members. The survey is open to everyone, regardless of their membership with NGA, but we do tend to get a higher response from NGA members just because of the way that the survey is disseminated. Like I said, we've been doing this, Meg and I have been doing this for 3 years, but we have had the annual survey for 13 consecutive years. So it's really given us such rich in-depth data about trends, things that have changed over the years, and has given us the ability to identify where changes are happening and what that picture looks like in the here and now. And finally, we were hosted through Edurio, so that was a really great platform to use our survey. We were able to analyse really easily some of the data that you provided to us. So today we'll be covering 4 topics out of this list. This list of 11 goes into depth within the report that you may have seen or you will see when we share the link. But we'll be looking at the governance role, finance, pupil success and wellbeing, and MAC governance. So there's just a few of the topics. We'd love to talk about all of them, and they do all integrate in some way, shape, and form. But we only have a short amount of time. And if you do have any questions on any of the other areas, then you can contact us as well. So I'll hand over to Meg, who'll be talking about the financial picture of schools and what we found through the survey.
Thanks, Nina. It's great to be with you all today. So yeah, I'm just going to talk you through a bit about the finances that we found out from everyone in the survey. So in terms of balancing the budget, it remained a top challenge for school and trust boards. 52% of respondents chose this as their top one. In terms of if we look at breakdown, so we can see that maintained schools are much more likely than trust respondents to report struggling to balance the budget, and that was both in the short term and the long term picture. Primary schools are more likely to also see this as a challenge compared to secondary schools. And worryingly, there's been a significant increase in respondents who are just overall feeling negative about school funding constantly right now. In the future, it's unfortunately quite a bleak picture. As you can see there as well, some of the stats around finance, we've seen that at the time of the survey, energy costs and staff pay costs a big impact there on budgets and school funding. Next slide, please, Nina. So as well in the survey, we don't just look at statistics, we get open text responses from you all. And again, these are to do with finance. You can see that we've got energy costs and staffing costs constantly coming through when people were able to write how they were feeling. And like I said, it's important to note that these responses were from a time around, like Nina said, April, May and June time. So that was when the energy costs were still a big player in the finance game. Thanks, Nina. Next slide. So finance, what can we do to support balancing the budget? These are just a selection of help points from our resources, some questions that we can ask. For example, what do we know about our financial position? Making sure we're looking at the most up-to-date information available. What options do we have to balance the budget? Utilizing staff members in your school are going to have, expert knowledge on this, your business professionals, CFOs, making sure you're getting all of the information in front of you to know what to do. And then again, question 3 there, what impact will our plans have on pupils? Reviewing your risk register and considering whether your school or trust is doing enough to mitigate and plan for identified risks. So there are just a few things that we've pulled out from our resources, but I would like to also direct you, if you are wanting to learn more about finance, get a better control on your knowledge of that we have learning link modules. For example, we've got 4 bite-sized units to support your skills. So please make sure you check out all of our platforms to really hone your knowledge on that skill area. I'm just going to hand back to Nina now for the next section.
Muted. Thanks, Meg. So the next topic is attendance. So it's something that has been highly highlighted throughout the past 12 months. It's something that we have been hearing about week in, week out, pretty much. And the survey told us nothing different. There was nothing different that we didn't already know. But it was really interesting to see that attendance came up as a top 3 challenge and a top 3 priority for many governing boards across England. Latest data across from different organisations and from the DfE indicate that attendance and absence issues are really high at the moment. It's a really key issue for schools, and it's learning about how we manage that. The DfE guidance stipulates and highlights that that governing board are the first level of responsibility when it comes to attendance, making sure that there's improvement around attendance and that they collaborate with leaders to resolve these issues in the way that they can, setting a whole school culture. So 29% of boards said that attendance was a priority, and 28% reported that it was a challenge. And this was both in primary and secondary settings. So it was interesting to see that it wasn't just a sole issue, depending on the phase of school, it was a widespread issue across the country. So we then went in to look at how schools and boards were addressing these issues, and parental communication and advice was the top successful method used to try and resolve any absence issues. And this ties really closely with our stakeholder engagement work and the importance of stakeholder engagement. And a lot of these feed into different areas. And we don't have a chance to explore stakeholder engagement in depth today, but it just really goes to show how communicating with parents and pupils can really play a key part in making sure that pupils who are attending school feel that they can attend school and are encouraged to as well. So you can see other options there were breakfast clubs, multi-agency support for families, attendance awards. But it's really interesting and important to note that it shouldn't happen in isolation. It should go hand in hand with how pupil groups are looked at. So what type of pupil groups are we specifically focusing on, and how can we resolve these issues with that pupil group in mind? So on the left-hand side, you'll see some questions to ask when you're at your governing board meeting, and it's comparing. It's interesting and also key to look at how your absence data compares to local and national averages, and then also segmenting that by your pupil groups. So, for example, pupils that are eligible for free school meals and pupils with SEND. And then how do absence reasons compare to local and national averages as well? That's really important to know. And who should you be particularly concerned about, and how can you improve their attendance? And like I say, it doesn't happen in isolation, and it definitely doesn't happen overnight. But having the conviction to know that you are utilising methods and sharing ideas and collaborating with school leaders to try and identify ways of improving attendance is really, really important, and asking those questions as well. So other questions you can ask in addition to these on the left are things like, do people feel welcome? Do they feel supported at school? Is the school improvement plan clear about what they're doing to improve school attendance? Are parents and carers aware of the school attendance policy, and do they understand what's expected of them as parents and what is expected of pupils attending the school? How are staff supported consistently to communicate the importance of attendance? And that's really important. And again, feeds back into the stakeholder engagement element. How are we talking to our staff, and how are we having those conversations as a governing board with staff to understand really the challenges around getting those pupils into those classrooms on a regular basis, learning and engaging every day. And this also really links quite nicely into safeguarding. So safeguarding was a really, really key issue that we found within our annual governance survey. Last year, we wanted to understand what safeguarding looked like post-pandemic. We know that from research from other organisations indicated that there is a rise in safeguarding concerns across the board, whether you look at it from a cyber point of view, when you look at it from actually being in school, the Ofsted report that was published about pupils being in school and how safe they felt. It really showed, we've had so much research that shows the importance and significance and severity of safeguarding at the moment. So last year, we found that just under 3/4 of governing boards reported a rise in safeguarding concerns post-pandemic. And that was a really shocking finding for us last year. So this year, we thought to understand what it's looked like in the past 12 months. We wanted to see, has it risen? Has it stayed the same? Is it leveling out? Are there things that are being done to improve safeguarding concerns? And unfortunately, we had some really harrowing results of 55% of governing boards reporting that there was a rise last year in the past 12 months alone in safeguarding concerns, with 41% saying levels were consistent. So there's nothing to indicate that safeguarding is getting better in schools. And it's a really tricky issue, and it's something that can't be addressed overnight. But it's really important to understand what your board and be a part of the conversation that your board is having about safeguarding. So when you're looking at the concerns around safeguarding, bullying, cyberbullying, neglect, and domestic abuse were the top four concerns that boards had seen an increase in over the past 12 months. Um, so um, yeah, so that was really interesting to see. And also when you break it down by school phase, it differed slightly. So for example, cyberbullying was slightly lower on the list for primary schools, understandably so, because access to social media is as not done as is not as prevalent as it is in secondary schools. So when you are discussing with your governing board about safeguarding, one thing you could do to address the issue and make sure that you're on top of the issue as a governing board is have it as a standing agenda for your governing board meetings. Discuss what safeguarding looks like every single time your board meet, especially if you are seeing a significant rise in safeguarding concerns, and honing in on those key issues. For example, cyberbullying. What is your school doing to make sure that your pupils feel safe online, not only in school but outside of school? Does the board even have sufficient knowledge and capacity to fulfill its safeguarding responsibilities? We know that governing boards have very high levels of capacity and also very many responsibilities to fulfill. So it's making sure that maybe having someone report back every governing board meeting about safeguarding as a safeguarding lead, that might be really helpful to have. Our staff, do they understand their roles and responsibilities, and are they able to discharge them? Again, feeding right back into that stakeholder engagement conversation, and also really um, probably fruitful conversation that you could have is with your pupils itself. Invite your pupils to your governing board meetings, whether it's for 10 minutes, have a couple of pupils there and discuss with them, do you feel happy in this school? Do you feel safe online? Do you know what to do if you feel like you've got a concern? Talking to pupils is such a rich conversation that you get it straight from the people that are attending those schools. And I think that is really key and can really, really open people's eyes on the board. So yes. So we'll move on to governance volunteers. We every year ask about who our governance volunteers are, where they govern, how long they've been governing for, who they are, what skills they have, what their employment status is, and it gives us a really good indication of who is choosing to volunteer their time as school governance and where there are gaps. So for years we've known that there is an underrepresentation on governing boards of age, skills, ethnicity, employment status. There is a really big recruitment challenge, and this year told us even more so than ever that there is a recruitment challenge. 77% of respondents said it was hard to recruit new governors and trustees, and this was up by 14% last year. This is not only the highest jump year on year that we've seen for people reporting that recruitment is a challenge, but it also indicates a 27% rise in recruitment challenges from 2011. So you can really see the significant shift in recruiting governance volunteers onto boards. So I thought that we would take a little bit of time to talk about how you could perhaps address this challenge and sort of broaden your horizons in a sense when it comes to advertising for these roles. So the first important thing to do and first useful thing to do is identify what skills are missing from the board. If you feel that you need someone with a legal expertise on your board, then you know that you need to be looking in the direction within, branching out into the legal sector if possible, or someone who has legal experience, and the same for finance and other different areas. But also it's just important to have some people that are reflective of your local community. That's people have lived experiences in those communities. People have a lot to offer. So it's identifying where are these little gaps and how can we fill them. You do have to get a little bit creative with advertising your roles, but also using channels like LinkedIn, local forums, going to community events to sort of showcase what governing boards do. Parents and staff in our school aren't often or very aware of what governing boards do. So sharing that information about what we do, who we're there for, what our aim is, what our vision is, and how it happens can really kind of open that gate and provide clarity on what the governing board actually is. being clear on the roles and responsibilities of the governing board can also be really important as well, because when you have someone on a governing board who isn't quite aware and then kind of feels that they've let themselves in for a little bit more, it can, they can often leave or not be as invested as they originally thought they would be. So this sort of mitigates any sort of areas of people leaving quite soon on after. Learning from exit interviews is quite useful as well. So when people are leaving your governing board, conducting those exit interviews can provide you with a little bit of information of how you can improve for the next time and how you can reach out and support those people carry on through governance as well. Move on to the next one. So we've got training and development. So just quickly before I talk about this slide, it's also quite important to talk about induction. How are you inducting your new governors and trustees? What does that process look like? So when you have someone join the board, is it that you provide them with a pack or a range of information, links? And that's obviously where your governance professional can also come in to support. But how are you providing initial information to those new people sitting on the board so they know what to expect? Are you providing questions that could be given to them so that they can ask them at the next governing board meeting? Are you inviting them in? The survey really showed that people felt once they were sat in a board, they felt part of the board. They felt that their voice was valued and included as part of the discussion. So it's making sure that steps like that are taken to enable kind of an openness in a sense and enable a good dynamic across the board. That's the most important thing. So when we look at training and development, that's really key to ensuring retention as well. As you can see, engaging in the e-learning courses was one of the top development methods used amongst our respondents, along with reading guidance and support and attending webinars such as these. So using an array of support and development techniques can also really foster and adopt a range of different networking opportunities, collaboration, simple learning opportunities. 30 minutes at lunchtime can be really helpful for people. So really become aware of what's around you and what's available to you. We have our e-learning link modules that are really useful, and I'll speak about those a little bit later on. But also make people on your board aware of these training and development opportunities as well, because most likely they would want to attend. As well to kind of build up their knowledge and update their knowledge. There's a lot to get updated on in different areas of school governance. So the forums like these can be really good whistle-stop tours to update yourself on on knowledge. So I'll pass back to Meg, who will talk about governing in trusts.
Thanks, Nina. Yeah, so as you can see here, just going to give you a really quick overview as to who in trust responded. So as Nina said earlier, we had a record 50% of respondents who governed in a trust. And this is great to see. We love this because we do dedicate, a lot of our time to ensuring our resources are specifically angled to those who govern within trusts. And as you can see there, mostly MAT trustees, then local governors and SAT trustees. And quite a big chunk of those in chairing roles and others who sit on the board as a trustee. Thanks, Nina. So every year we ask local governors a bit about how they feel about being in a MAT, what are their thoughts, and we can see here that we've got great longitudinal data on this. So you can see on the graph there on the left, 72% of those who are governing at local level felt that their voice was heard, and this remains consistent to other years. You can also see there that over half, so I think it's 58%, feel that communication between the local tier and the trust board is effective and well managed. However, this is a slight reversal of the upward trend that we have been seeing in the past few years. I mean, both of these statistics show slight stagnation, and while there's overall a more positive attitude than negative, but between the tiers, there's still work to be done there to ensure the local tier are kind of staying engaged. And again, there you can see in terms of resources being shared, there's a bit of a difference in opinion again. So we'll be looking into that, I'm sure. Next slide, please, Nina. So we've seen there a bit of a skewed idea of communication, a bit positive, a bit negative. So I put together a bit of a whistle-stop tour of our resources on local governance and communication. And you can see those resources in the bottom right there. But also, you know, this list here, for a few examples I'll pick out. So how can we, you know, work on that communication, making sure, you know, there's clear role descriptions. As Nina was saying, induction is so important. Have you got clear role descriptions that people are joining the board with? You know, is your induction thorough, knowing what everyone's responsible for, you know, not feeling potentially upset because you've misunderstood what is your remit, what's not. And just reviewing this all the time as a trust board and as a trust, making sure that, you know, you're always asking everyone how they're feeling and making sure that it's, you know, a successful channel of communication and getting the most out of that governance structure. Next slide, please, Nina. So we can see here, this is about MAT growth in the past 12 months. This year's results have shown, you know, the highest year-on-year increase in MAT growth since we started asking this question in 2020. All size MATs that applies to have seen a higher amount of growth in the past 12 months. Reasons for this, as you can see in that table there, we've got economies of scale moves from fifth chosen as a reason for growth to third, and strategy there, you know, solidifying its place at the top. Next slide, please, Nina. There we go. This is about growth in the future. Again, those deciding to grow in the future, seen a record of those people that are saying yes to growing in the future, an increase of 10 percentage points since last year. And interestingly, trusts with 11 to 20 academies are those who said that they had the highest intent to grow, with 68% of those in that category actually saying that they're going to grow in the future. And again, if we look at reasons, they've slightly shifted from last year, with again economies of scale jumping up to first place there, but strategy still in the list there. Thanks, Nina. So I thought it was really interesting, really positive that being strategic, having it in your strategy was still in, you know, the top 3 for both years. So I've just popped together a list of things to, you know, think about if you were thinking about having growth within your strategy, you know, self-evaluation, making you're evaluating the risks, the opportunities, if you have capacity, you know, merging with another MAT, you know, growth looks very different. So I definitely direct you to our Being Strategic document if growth is something that you're thinking about or wanting to explore in a bit more detail there. Thanks, Nina. So just going to hop on to MAT Finance, and I found this one quite interesting myself. So obviously we've heard earlier on that you know, local authorities are struggling a bit, but actually MATs, although more likely to have a healthy surplus and feel positive, these figures are in decline. If we're looking at the longitudinal data there, there's been a 7 percentage point decrease in MATs who report being able to retain that healthy surplus, and a 15% decrease in those feeling financially sustainable in the long term compared to last year. So it's the first year where we've seen signs of even those in the MAT system starting to struggle financially. And this is actually echoed as well in a new report by the National Foundation for Education Research. They found very similar results. So it's unfortunate, but, you know, very similar picture across the sector. And again, if you look at MAT specifically, staff pay costs, SEND costs, and infrastructure costs are all a challenge on that balanced budget at the minute. So yeah, next slide. Thanks, Nina. So again, focusing on the budget, what can support you with the financial side of governance. I've taken these from our vast amount of financial resources that can support you, but it can include reviewing your financial position, looking at benchmarking, reviewing your strategy, like we said, and reviewing your KPIs, and then also scrutinising the draft budget. So looking at staffing changes, premises issues, income assumptions. And I'd just really recommend, especially, you know, I know what times are like, but looking at our finance resources for a bit of support there. And we've got a breadth of resources that are waiting for you there. So please do have a look at those if they would be of use to you. Thanks, Nina. So we've put question time here. I know it's not an interactive session, but any thoughts you have, any experiences, insights, whether this resonates with you, whether it doesn't, or just anything that you potentially want to know, we can get back to you. But please do drop your comments in the chat box there, and I'll just hand over to Nina for the last few slides.
Thanks, Meg. Yeah, yeah. So to pop some ideas and thoughts in the chat. We'd love to hear whether any of these echo your experiences, if there's anything missing, and sort of your suggestions on when we could go from here. We're always looking for ways of how NGA can expand its voice, how we can have our voice heard in the relevant areas. So do drop some comments and thoughts along the way. And hopefully you found this session interesting. There's only so much we can go in through for half an hour, so we'd love to carry on going on about it for more. But like Meg says, we have a breadth of resources sat there waiting for you in our knowledge centre, in our e-learning link modules. Which I'll talk about. But while you're popping things into the chat, I'll just go through some of the upcoming events we have. If you've enjoyed today, we've got another webinar coming up later on in the next month. So look out for that. And that is about empowering governing boards for building health and safety. So that's such a pertinent issue in the here and now. And I'm sure many of you are having those conversations. We also have networks. So if you like a bit more of an interactive experience, feel free to join one of our networks. We have the LA Partners Network and the Young Governors Network, along with the Governance Professionals Network. So they're really good opportunities to share, collaborate, hear from other people. We have our annual seminars coming up, so they've been sort of focused through the annual governance survey, the findings of those, and they go into quite some depth about some of these issues, such as pupil attendance, retaining and development of school staff and disadvantaged pupils. So we've got a really great range of events coming up this term. If you'd like to know more information, you can email us or you can visit our events page, which should have all the relevant information for you. So just a little bit more about our Learning Link offer if you're not already familiar with it. It's a great platform to do some interactive learning. There's a range of courses, so over 65 modules that we have on a range of different subject topics, from Ofsted to finance to being in a MAT to safeguarding. Slight reminder, safeguarding training as we start the new term, so that's available for you if you want to do that. But they're all tailored, available 24/7. It's just such a great resource to use. I utilize it if I'm on an exclusion panel and I just need to refresh my memory. I really enjoy the modules. They're very interactive. They're not just slides going through them. So yeah, do take a look at those and explore whether you've got membership already or whether it's something that you would like to have. We also have these development programs from our Leading Governance offer. So we have, for those leading and supporting governing boards, we have development for MAT trustees, for chairs and for clerks. So these are programs that sort of hone in on specific areas of leading governing boards. They're great workshops that we offer throughout those separate ones. So if that's something that you're interested in, please do email us. You can visit the website as well, which will be included in the post-webinar email that you receive. And finally, just a big thank you to you all for joining us today. We really do hope that you have enjoyed this webinar. We hope to see some of you at our MAT conference next Monday. But like I say, there's a load of events that we have coming up this term. So we hope to see some of you there. And if you do have any questions at all, please do just email us or contact us any other way. Have a lovely rest of your afternoon and have a great week ahead. Thank you.
Thanks all.